All right. Got all of our Apple products set up here. Filming off the Mac, iPad for the comments, and of course the iPhone to take your calls here in a little bit. If in fact this is working. Josh Weiser, good to see you. Jeff Wilson, good to see you. DM, I will certainly get to that here in a second. The inside joke there regarding a particular team in the ACC with a mascot named the Cardinals. We'll certainly get to that in a little bit, but DM, so happy to see you here. And bear with us, guys, with all these new encoders that we're having to use here on YouTube. I think the footage here in the stream might be a little grainy from time to time, but we're still going to get our point across. We're still going to get everything done that we need to do. Scott Bankale, guy that knows everything about Baylor and many other sports as well. Good to have you. And George Stice, I'm so glad you've finally been able to make a stream. You know, I appreciate all of your support, George, but man, I hated seeing those comments from you after a live stream. It's like, I missed it because we wanted you here. So super glad to have you, and certainly has been way too long. Certainly has been way too long, but hey, better late than never. So glad you're able to make it. If it's only for a little bit, who cares? We're just glad to have you. And Ryan Mell, how's it going with you? Hope all is well with you as well. Big old Georgia Bulldog fan down there. And of course, we got plenty of Bulldogs talk coming your way here. Maybe tonight, but also here in the next few weeks as well as we continue to progress through these schedule previews. So yeah, DM, first off, you predict 4,000 subs by September 1st. That would be fantastic. That would be amazing if we could land that. I think right now we're almost to 3,730. So just about 270 away, give or take. I'm hoping we can have that by July 1st, if I'm being honest. But September 1st, the longer deadline, so I'll happily take it. And you know, we discussed, you know, I say when I talk about the Cardinals in the ACC, I say Louisville. Some people say no, as DM would say, it's Louisville or Louisville or something like that. And I kind of do the entire enunciation Louisville. That's just kind of how I've always said it. Maybe it's correct, maybe it's not, but Louisville, as DM would say, he and I went back and forth discussing about that and how different broadcasters pronounce it just a little bit differently. If I end up in the booth sometime, I might get hazed by the Kentucky natives and by the Louisville fans because I don't know if I'm going to be able to switch it from Louisville to Louisville or Lowville or however they choose to pronounce it during those times. So DM, super happy to have you here. Once again, thank you for all of the support and always the discussion as well. Keto, how's it going, my man? First off, great work on your end. Great work with your videos. Doing a fantastic job over there. And thank you for the haircut. Man, it took me forever to get this thing. You know, a lot of the, barbershops and salons, they're starting to open up around the country now. And, of course, in doing so, the wait times of those places were 2-3 hours long. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I'm super happy I was finally able to get that done. And I'm very pleased with it. Now I may or may not decide to shave. I don't know. We're going back and forth between the quarantine beard and no quarantine beard. I should have let it go out the entire time since it started just to see, you know, from the start of quarantine till it finally ends. But we're in between phases right now. And College Football Frenzy, good to have you here as well. Once again, good work on your page as well. Doing good work over there and happy to have you here. So guys, we'll let a couple other people hop on the chat with us, and then we're going to open up the lines to take calls from you guys. We want to hear what you guys have to say, and of course we'll hit all of the questions and comments in the live chat as well. But I think the first thing that we can certainly talk about, as we allow some more people to jump on here and allow more the comments to keep piling up, is what happened last night in the state of California. As the California state kind of school systems, the university systems, choosing to do online classes in the fall. And that's for, I believe, 23 public universities within the state of California. And a couple of those were big-time schools, at least within the world of college football. And you've got Fresno State, you had San Diego State, San Jose State, or any of those guys playoff contenders, New Year's Six bowl contenders? Probably not. Playoff contender, certainly not. New Year's Six, you never know. But those are still teams that if they don't play football, it's going to affect scheduling within the Mountain West. You know, you look at other teams as well. San Jose State's supposed to travel out to Happy Valley to take on Penn State early in September. Fresno State's got a couple big games on there. Now the biggest team, of course, they're discussing is USC, which wasn't involved in that California state system. But USC is supposed to travel down to Arlington to face off against Alabama in week 1. And there's a chance that that game might not happen. So a major decision that was made last night for those universities to move there. And I have to say, guys, I strongly disagree with it. I really do. And I am all for the safety of our student athletes and students across the country. You know, no one wants to catch COVID-19. No one wants it. Take it from a guy that had it. I had it myself. And it's absolutely miserable. And of course, depending on your age, you know, sometimes it's not as bad in younger people compared to those of the older age. It just depends on this type of scenario and how bad you catch this virus, because there are certainly different strains of it. But no one wants it. No one wants to get it. But this academic year just wrapped up. This 2019-2020 academic year just finished for the majority of schools across the country. And we're already making decisions on next school year, about 3-4 months out. We're deciding to do online classes. I know it's just the state of California, but they're not going to be the only ones to do it, guys. Let's be honest. You know, these cases keep popping up. A lot of states are starting to kind of remove their shelter-in-place orders. We're moving out. But this virus is going to start picking back up again. Even if we go through a very nice summer where we don't have many cases and maybe it dies down, more than likely, as many analysts and doctors are expecting, it's going to spike back up again. So still premature to cancel, in my opinion, but in a way I do kind of see where California is coming from. But I wish they would wait and do that, because I still think we're going to have a college football season. I still think we're going to have a college football season. It just might not be the way that we want it. You know, it might start in October. It might be the fact that we don't have non-conference games. We remove non-conference games, which would be an absolute shame, because there are some really, really great non-conference matchups, especially in week 2. I mean, my goodness. Tennessee, Oklahoma, LSU, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Auburn, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Arkansas. I mean, there's so many great non-conference matchups in week 2. Penn State, Virginia Tech. I mean, that if you eliminated the non-conference, yes, it makes sense, and in the grand scheme of things, conference games are what matter the most, but man, those would take away from very exciting football games. So it might be a late start. It might be we remove that. It might be we just play conference games. It might be that we wait till spring. Who knows? It's a tough situation right now. It really, really is. And they've come out today saying that there's no definite date, that college football does not have to start on a specific date. And there's also a chance, too, that certain conferences could choose to play while others do not. You know, there's talk of there right now that the SEC, because in the South, the cases aren't nearly as bad as maybe some more cases out west and in the northeastern part of the country, that the SEC might just play their football season by themselves. You know, just means more, right? Down in the Southeastern Conference, they might just choose to play it by themselves, forget what the other conferences are doing. We're going to do our thing. They can do theirs. Because in the end, it's not up to the NCAA, who really don't do much anyways. It's up to the governors of the states, and it's also up to the university presidents, and it's up to the conferences. That's who it's up to, really, ultimately, when it comes to college football. So a lot of stuff that's going on here that we're going to have to monitor for the next few months. Certainly something that we wish we never had to deal with, but something that we're going to have to be patient with and just try to handle as best we can. In the meantime, we're going to have plenty of live streams and schedule previews and predictions. Predictions coming up here in about a month and a half. About a month, give or take. We'll have an official date out for you soon. Great video for that coming out. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, so I want to touch on a couple of the comments here before we open up the line, so we can hear from you guys and we can discuss, as we say in the description and on Twitter, anything and everything college football. So Jeff Wilson, nice to see you. Emperor of Rome, how's it going? Super glad to have you. Hope all is going well with you. Of course, Emperor of Rome, as many of you know, this guy's going to come in here today, not only going to drop some football knowledge on you, but he's going to drop some random facts and knowledge that none of you probably even knew prior to this live stream. And, you know, funny story about that, when I was in high school, we had a guy, his name was Nelson. Great guy, good guy. Loved the guy to death. But every Wednesday at my high school, we had a thing called Wacky Fact Wednesday. And Nelson, being the, kind of the goober that he was, and just kind of a, goofball, he was our Wacky Fact guy. So it was his job to find 3 or 4 random facts, completely random and weird. And he would shout it out over the entire school, over the PA system or the video announcements. And Emperor of Rome, I got to say, you kind of remind me a little bit of him when you drop these facts on us here on these live streams. But I absolutely love it. I not only leave these live streams learning more about college football, but I certainly learn more about the world in general. All right, so we're going to go through, like I said, a couple of the comments here, and then we're going to hit the phone calls here. Cyclone Mitch, good to have you. Hope all is going well, and thank you. Thank you for the haircut comment. That's 2 I've gotten today. Take a lot of pride in that. Only 2 I've gotten on this haircut that I was able to land. So thank you, and hope all is going well, Mitch. I've enjoyed discussing with you through Twitter. We won't stop that. A lot of stuff coming up that we're definitely going to be discussing soon. But hope all's well. Happy to see you here. George Stice, when I first went to Western Kentucky earlier this year, I quickly learned that I pronounce, I say Louisville. Louisville, however you want to say it, but wrong. Yeah, look, people in Kentucky, man, especially those Louisville alums, they're strict on that. They're strict on that. And DMs quickly brought that to my attention. And hey, Keto and College Football Frenzy, look, what we do here is far from perfect too. No one's ever perfect. Got to start somewhere. So beginner level, far from perfect, whatever it may be, take some time to build up. Just keep perfecting your craft. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it because it's going to get there in time. It'll get there in time. But enjoy checking y'all's content out. You guys do a very good job. I know you put a lot of work into those as well. Yeah, there's rumors now. Of course, we talked about the chance that USC might not play Alabama in Week 1, and I'm sure Emperor of Rome would have a little insight on that as well, maybe as being an Alabama fan. But rumors that if USC does not come out because of the decision made in California last night, that maybe Alabama chooses to play TCU, tries to reschedule. I mean, look, the game's going to be played in Dallas or Arlington, so it would make sense. You take an in-state team. Alabama's not going to be afraid to travel. Come on. Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide aren't going to pass up a chance to play football, especially at a location like that against a marquee team, a good Power 5 team. TCU would be a perfect matchup for that. Maybe not as exciting as the USC game, but with that addition of Zach Evans, as Ryan Mell pointed out, the first 5-star recruit and commit to TCU in program history, could prove for a very intriguing game. New quarterback in Mac Jones for Alabama, loss of some key wide receivers, key players on the defensive side of the ball back from injury, Zach Evans on TCU, Gary Patterson, Nick Saban. I think it'd make for a pretty good matchup. I'd watch it. I think it could be relatively close as well. Looking through the rest of the comments here. Yeah, Alabama USC would have been great. And it's still not over. Look, it's not set in stone, guys. That's one of the things we have to keep in mind here. For the next, take it here, and you're going to hear it other places too. For the next 3 or 4 months, 2 to 4 months really, you're going to hear so many different rumors and speculations about, oh, they're not going to play. Or, oh, the football season's canceled. Or it's partially canceled here, but it's not going to be canceled here. So many things are going to happen, and we can't take any of it. We can't believe any of it until it's official. You know, rumors might pick up steam, and you might start hearing it from more credible sources. Then you can take it seriously. But for now, who knows? I mean, the California decision's legit. I'm not dogging that. I'm just saying that there's no guarantee that Alabama will not play USC. There's no guarantee that the Pac-12 is done, that the Pac-12 will not play football. It doesn't look good, but it's not set in stone. It will not be set in stone until we get that official word, and I'm not going to take it as a set-in-stone deal until I hear that official word either. So we just got to deal with the rumors, deal with the reports until we finally get word on that, and hopefully that word won't come for a while because I don't want to see people make premature decisions. I do not want to see them make premature decisions way too early. Of course, they can change their mind, but it'd be smarter to do it later, closer to time, than way too early. Mina Eldawane, good to see you. Good to have you here as well. And you're making the point that it could start in September. Absolutely. It absolutely could start in September. Who knows? That's what we're kind of saying. It's all speculation right now until something is set in stone. Benjamin Orman, good to have you here. I know you tweeted asking when the live stream would be, so I'm glad you were able to make it tonight. What will happen if they play football and baseball both in the spring? But it takes away from the baseball team because most of your baseball fans are diehard football fans as well. Look, I mean, colleges will run into that issue. The universities will run into that problem. But there's also basketball games sometimes running with baseball games. You know, sometimes you have, on one given day, you have a basketball game and a baseball game going on. I know it's not nearly as big as football. Football is the biggest out of all three of those sports at most universities across the country. But you got to make a decision. Maybe they work a schedule out where you schedule the football game here, and then the baseball game is later, or the baseball game is first, and then it's a football. So you can spend a whole day on campus just hitting the games. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. More people are going to choose to go to football. I know I would, not dogging on baseball, but that's just fact of the matter. Most people would rather watch a football game than a baseball game. And that's just something that I think really is not as big of a problem as some will make it out to be. Because at the end of the day, would you rather have that small problem about revenue and, oh, look, we conflicting times with baseball, football, or would you rather say, look, we've got two sports going on at one time? At one point in time, we didn't think that was possible. That's how I'd look at it. Oh, well, if they, conflict with each other, we've got them both. Let's be happy with that and take it. It's still revenue for the school regardless, and you're going to fit more people into a football stadium than you will a baseball stadium. And we know that's fact. Emperor of Rome, not calling you a goober. No, Nelson was, and he was great. I was more referring to you in terms of you're both similar because you provided those wacky facts. You provided those great random facts that, really enlighten the people around you. That's what we like. That's not what we like. No. But if I was, goober is used as a good term here. It's used as a positive term. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. College football frenzy, Notre Dame Navy is not happening in Dublin. That's for sure. Once again, not set in stone. Probably not, considering the amount of travel that would take, considering they'd have to be going to Ireland for that. Probably not, but still not set in stone. All right, Cyclone Mitch agrees better than nothing. And Cyclone Mitch, very true as well. If you guys saw Joe Klatt's tweet last night, he was 100% factual on what he said. Joe Klatt is one of the better analysts out there right now. And he's one of the guys that when I look at his tweets, when I look at his analysis, you can trust him. He's not just spewing nonsense. He's not doing things to get likes. He's not doing things to get views. He's trying to tell the truth, trying to tell things as it is. And I really appreciate that. I think analysts need to be more like that. And so I fully agree. Go check out some of the stuff that he's talking about on Twitter, that he's talking about, whether it's on The Herd with Colin Cowherd, who is not a good analyst. We won't get into that, but he puts out some good information. And then finally, before we open these lines here, George Stice, imagine playing with no fans. Look, that's obviously a lot of talk right now, is that college football could happen with no fans. That if the NBA and MLB return here in the next few weeks or months, they will probably play with no fans. As weird as that would be, and as unfortunate that would be, because it would kind of take away that home field advantage. A Penn State game, their annual whiteout game this year is going to be against Ohio State. You put all those fans in there for that whiteout game, it makes a huge difference. If Ohio State comes to Penn State with no fans in there, doesn't make that much of a difference at all. It doesn't really help Penn State at all. But having those fans in there for that type of environment, for that type of game, it does make a difference. So it'd be weird. It would be, hurting a team that maybe luckily had a big-time opponent coming to their house. But once again, at the end of the day, I think every coach, I think every athlete, I think every fan would take playing without fans more than having them. And I think ESPN just did a study out recently talking about that, saying, they took a poll that would you rather have sports back Would you have sports back if it meant not having fans in the arena or the stadiums? And it's like 90% saying yes. People are desperate. People want sports. And if any of you have watched the Korean Baseball League on ESPN at like 4:30 in the morning, please let me know how that's going. I haven't been able to make it up that late. Haven't been able to catch any action yet, but look, it's still sports. It's still sports. So if you're watching some of it, early risers or night owls that are catching those games, let me know how it's going. Maybe I'll have to stay up one night and get a little dose of sports in. And DM making an excellent point. The home stadium will pipe in crowd support audio when its team has the ball, distracting crowd noise when the visiting team has the ball. I'm all for that too. No fans? I'm okay with that. It'd be illegal and cheating by many standards, but hey, let's make it happen. And John Hopkins, good to have you. We're going to open the lines right now, but yo, cats, C-A-T-S, just like the Jets. J-E-T-S, Jets. Not a Jets fan at all. Actually hate that chant. But good to have you, John. Happy to have you here. Let's pop it up. Live call-in number. I don't know if that worked here or not, but I will type it in if it didn't work. We, of course, want to hear from you guys. Let me get it up here. I'm typing on my iPad today. And there we go. 901-297-4545. We want to hear from you, so bring it on. Let's get some calls coming in. Talk anything and everything college football. It can be about COVID. It can be about this upcoming season. It can be about last season. It can be about these schedule previews. We want to hear from you and what you guys had to say. Lots of big news coming around in college football. So much going on, so much speculation. There's so much to talk about. Hunter Shin, good to have you, my man. So good to see you. Hope all is going well with you. As with all of you, hope you're staying healthy, hope you're staying safe, and wherever you are, in whatever state you're in, if they're starting to, become lax on those stay-at-home orders and you're starting to get out a little bit more, maybe you're going back to work, or maybe you're just itching to get out and go somewhere, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy and being smart out there. We want our, the Gridiron gang, someone once said, we want you guys to all stay safe and healthy and keep coming to these streams and everything. So, Hunter, so good to have you. Hope all is going well. Appreciate all those comments on these previous videos. And Benjamin Norman's here saying, it's baseball, so it's great. More hits and offense. I like baseball. I love baseball. Absolutely love it. But I would take football over it any day of the week. We're getting our first caller here from Waco, and I think I might know who it is. I think I was right on this. Is this Scott?
Yes, it is.
Hey, what's up, Scott? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm staying safe, and I'm glad to report that McLean County, the county that Baylor is in, it's had no new cases or very few since last Friday.
Okay, that's great. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. That's what we like to hear. And Scott, before we dive into your question real quick, you recently followed me on Twitter and Instagram, and I happened to take a look at your profile. And can you just tell me and anybody else, if you don't mind, about the Dancing Man? You're big into Baylor sports. You're a big Baylor fanatic, providing everybody with big Baylor news. But you're the Dancing Man as well.
Yeah.
What's that about?
When I was at Baylor, I actually was asked to be on the local news, where the sportscaster at the time actually asked me to be on, and I literally, he called me that, and I broke it down on the dance floor, and Julie Hayes, one of the people there, she laughed so hard she cried.
That's amazing.
I was to wait for that.
That's amazing. Scott, that is awesome. That is awesome. So let's talk Baylor football. I assume that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it is. What do you think is the strengths and weaknesses for Baylor football this year on both sides of the ball?
Oh, it's a great question. That's a great question. I would say, Scott, the first weakness that I would see is definitely on the defensive side of the ball. And I know that that's odd to say considering Dave Aranda's coming in, brand new head coach, and he's one of the top defensive coordinators, or was, in the entire game. But, the Bears don't return too much production on that defensive side of the ball, especially, I would say, along that defensive line. So that's one thing that I think concerns me a little bit. And then when you look at them offensively, I think you've got Charlie Brewer, who is one of the better quarterbacks in the entire Big 12, without a doubt. But when you lose a guy like Denzel Mims, and I know he's not the entire wide receiver core, but you've got to be able to find some pass catchers there for Charlie Brewer to make this offense effective. They were good last year. They weren't crazy explosive. They were just good enough. And I do think they'll take a little bit of a step back. So I would say you're looking at maybe a potential wide receiver core and defensive line concerns there. And I'm going to pick up this phone call here, Scott. I want to get your remarks. I'm going to put this guy on hold real quick.
Okay.
Call from.
Hey, sir, we're going to put you on hold for 1 second.
Okay.
All right, Scott, you still with us? Still there, Scott? Scott, you still there?
Yes, I am.
All right, so what are your thoughts on that? We were talking about Baylor's weaknesses both on offense and defense.
I agree about the defense because they have a lot of pieces on the defensive side. I want to bring it back to stars. Sure, they got Ron Bradley King, but he cannot do that ball by himself, as well as Terrell Bernard and Raleigh Tejada. That's the only three known starters right now.
Right.
For me, on the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
Offensively, I do see the wide receiver position as a little problem, but I know they have other guys who are not proven yet, especially Gavin Holmes, who hasn't played the last 2 years due to injury.
Sure. Well, and that's one of the good things. You hate to lose some of your top receivers. You hate to lose a guy like Denzel Mims, but it is an opportunity for guys that maybe have had very little playing time or have kind of been waiting in the shadows to emerge. And this is an opportunity for a fairly brand new core of receivers to quickly try to build chemistry with Charlie Brewer and make their mark in obviously a league that is just dominated by the pass game and just by the offense, period. So it is going to be a great opportunity for them to kind of see some emerging stars out of Waco.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially like Seth Jones coming in this fall.
Right. No, they got a couple key pieces on the defensive side of the ball, too. Got a couple key transfers there as well that I really think will fit well into Aranda's system.
Mm-hmm. I really hope they get that guy from Illinois now, because he's in the transfer portal right now.
Yes. Yep. It's interesting with all these transfer portals as well, and all these transfers. That's something that could be a whole point of discussion too. Is eventually they're going to play football. Eventually we're going to get football back. It's just whether or not will it be this year or will it be later on. And I think that's something that could greatly affect the decision of some of these top transfers.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because and not only that, but for the NFL guys who want to go to the draft.
That's something that the NCAA and that's something that the conference can't put together themselves. That the university athletic director stuff. That's something that the NCAA has to decide. Is if we postpone this season or if we do not have a season, you have to give either an extra year of eligibility to the seniors. Or those that were planning on going to the draft but needed to play this year to be eligible to do so, they need to let them do so. They need to let them go pro because that just throws a wrinkle in everybody's plan. So I think you make an excellent point there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is not only affecting football, but every fall sport. Trying to play trying to play even a season, or even like baseball, softball, tennis, or like their fall stuff.
Exactly.
Never really even starts in the spring.
Yeah, I think football is the biggest point of discussion right now. And of course, they're discussing MLB and NBA because that's what's relevant in this month at this particular time. But you're right. There are plenty of other sports that will be affected in the fall that are not maybe as big as football, but certainly big to those student athletes, and we have to keep them in mind. And those are major decisions for them as well across every conference and across the NCAA. So they have major decisions to make. And I will say this, Scott, before we part ways here, the NCAA to me has continuously failed at making correct decisions. And so I hope for once they finally get it right in one of the wildest and most difficult times that college sports has ever faced.
I absolutely agree. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Absolutely. Well, Scott, hey man, thank you so much for calling in, and hope to keep seeing your comments on the schedule previews, and definitely catch you next week.
Yeah, I will do.
All right, appreciate it, Scott. All right, so who do we have on the line right here? Sorry for having you on hold for so long.
Ben?
What's up, Ben? How's it going?
It's going good.
You staying safe and everything through all this? Hanging in there?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right, it's good to hear. So what are we talking about today?
Let's talk North Carolina State Wolfpack football.
Let's bring it. What you got?
Honestly, with this new coaching staff, they brought in Coach Mack from Texas, and I feel like they're being I feel like they're underrated, and I feel like their season will be a whole lot better if their quarterback play can be improved from last year.
Yeah. Look, I think what I'm going to do right now, Ben, for you is I'm going to pull up. I actually want to pull up North Carolina State's schedule here, not to predict it, but just to take a look at what they're going up against here. I agree with you. I agree that the quarterback play was obviously very subpar last year, but I think you and I both knew that it was going to struggle in 2019 because you lost a guy like Ryan Finley, who is one of the top 3 passers all time in North Carolina State history. So when you lose a guy like that, you're going to take a little bit of a step back. And we're going to answer this call real quick before we keep going here. I'm going to put him on hold.
Call from
Mitch.
Hey, what's up, Mitch? Going to put you on hold for 1 second. Yeah, so Ben, you look, we knew they were going to take a step back at the quarterback position. And you commented on one of our recent videos here asking if you thought Dave Doran was on the hot seat going into 2020. And I said no. When you look at their history and the job that he's done, he had one bad year last year. And I think we expected that. And Wolfpack went 4-8, started the season 3-1, but went 4-8 down the stretch or at the end of the day. Looking at their schedule here, Ben, I agree. If they get any more consistency at the quarterback position, they could be in good hands because really the schedule lines up relatively favorably for them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it here. A road game at Troy. I'm looking at the non-conference now, but Mississippi State, they get to host at home at Troy, Delaware, Liberty. All of those are certainly winnable games. At least Troy, Delaware, and Liberty are. The Mississippi State game will be intriguing just because of Mike Leach making that move to Starkville. New quarterback scenarios here with the Wolfpack, and then that air raid offense trying to get implemented. They host Duke. They host Wake Forest. They host Boston College. All of those could very well be victories. And if they win 3 of those non-conference games and then take care of the mediocre, to slightly above average ACC teams like Duke, Wake Forest, Boston College, and keep in mind they host Florida State as well, this team could very well be going bowling. And let me ask you, you said you think they're underrated. What are you looking to get out of the Wolfpack this year? What would, in your eyes, be a successful season, considering the coaching changes, as you mentioned, considering the uncertainty at quarterback? What exactly are you hoping to get out of them?
7 wins, if not 8.
Seven.
Maybe stretching it, but I'll be happy with 7.
Yeah, with 7, would you be happy with 6? Because that would at least get you to a bowl game.
Yeah.
You know, you look. I think right now, you know, like I said, I think if you're looking for anybody within the Wolfpack program to be underrated, it is Dave Doran right now. It's the job that he's done really cannot go overlooked. I mean, 9-4 in 2018, in 2017, also went 9-4. I mean, that was of course with, you know, Ryan Finley and very dangerous teams. I mean, teams that were competitive with Clemson. You know, teams that at one point in time, you know, were, you know, highly ranked, I believe, at least in the top 20, if not farther than that. So back-to-back 9-win seasons. 2016 had 7 wins. 2019 was, you know, a bad year, and I think every coach is due one of those every now and then, especially when you have so much turnover like the Wolfpack did last year. So I think they can take a step in the right direction. I think, like you said, it all comes down to quarterback play, and they've certainly got a battle going on there right now for that starting position.
Yes, sir. And I also wanted to get your take on how do you think Chase Bryce coming in Duke could improve the Blue Devils? Yeah,
that's a great question. Look, I look at Chase Bryce. A lot of unknown there. You know, the only thing we have to base off of Chase Bryce is what people say about him because of all of his, you know, from recruiting and coming out of high school, and then very slight playing time when he led Clemson to that victory over Syracuse, which he did fine in that. He got them a win. They don't win that game, they probably don't make the national championship. Who knows? But when I do, Duke's a team under David Cutcliffe that consistently, to me, expectations. I know they're not consistently making bowl games, but he's a quarterback guru, and he went to a basketball school and made their football program relevant. And I think right off the bat, in year 1 with Chase Bryce, if Cutcliffe works his magic like he's been known to do, I'm looking at their schedule now too. They more than likely should start 3-0. They've got a home game against Wake Forest. They've got a home game against Virginia, who's going to take a step back. Georgia Tech won't be that competitive. You know, honestly, Ben, that game at North Carolina State or Duke could maybe decide if they're going to a bowl game this year or not. That's really how important that game on October 10th is going to be. Now, of course, I'm not predicting anything. Those will come later. But I think Chase Bryce, maybe he doesn't get him to a bowl game this year, but he's got multiple years of eligibility left. He's a transfer that has a lot of time left compared to some of these senior transfers. So I think he really is going to do very, very well there, as most quarterbacks do when they play under Cutcliffe.
Yes, sir.
Well, Ben, hey, man, I appreciate you calling in. Appreciate the talk, and definitely look forward to seeing the rest of your comments and discussing with you further later on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. All right, Mitch, you still there, man?
Oh, yeah. What's up?
What's going on, man? How's it going?
I'm doing good. You?
I'm doing great. Couldn't be better.
Yeah, so I came here to talk about Zach Evans and his recruiting story and all that.
Yeah. Like the entire mess that was. I mean, you know, you and I have talked about that a little bit over the past few days, but you know, you got a 5-star running back who I believe was like the top running back coming out of high school in this class, or at least one of them, and just could not pick a place to go. And I think you and I both, when you sent me the message the other night saying, I think he's leaning towards TCU, it really caught me off guard. I apparently had missed that news. But this was a guy that, you know, at one point was going to go to Georgia, you know, was committed to Georgia. And hold on, we're getting a call. I want to get them on hold before we keep going here. So 1 second here.
Call from
We're going to put you on hold for 1 second, man.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got his whole recruiting trail pulled up right here, Mitch, and I'm just trying to take a look at it. Would be signing with Georgia, up and down to the state championship high school team, in a complete waiting game. He's a guy that when we found out that he wasn't headed over to the SEC, it was just okay. Where to now? And the fact that he just committed now, a couple of weeks into May, is to me just unbelievable. Super, super late for a guy in a class like this. And I think it caught you off guard, too. I think it caught a lot of people off guard. I mean, this is the first 5-star recruit that TCU has ever landed with their football program. And that, to me, considering how long Gary Patterson has been there and how well they have played over the past 20-something years, it absolutely blows my mind.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think TCU is a great school for him because he had a lot of problems at his high school, with his attitude and stuff like that, and his high school football coach. I think at TCU he could turn his attitude around because there's not much students there, and it's not really a trouble school, TCU.
Oh, you're exactly right. And look, if anybody's going to kind of come in there and straighten him out, it's going to be Gary Patterson. I think you look for a coach that's kind of a hard nose. He's a bruiser. Yeah, they care for him, care for their players. They want the best for him. But they also don't take, they don't take any crap, And Patterson's one of those guys. I view Nick Saban as one of those guys. Maybe even Kirby Smart had he gone to Georgia. But the comment you made is what I like the most, and something you said to me as well is, yes, TCU is a much smaller school. And while the spotlight's certainly been on him just because of how well he was coming out of high school, because of his star status, he's not going to be under as much national spotlight, at least not at first, because as of right now, TCU is not a college football playoff contender going into 2020. And I think that's something that's going to greatly benefit him, at least for the time being.
Oh, yeah, that definitely boosts TCU in terms of winning games this year because he's going to start right away. He's going to do good.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, look, TCU had so many questions at running back coming into this season anyways. And I think that also probably played a role in his decision is, Georgia is known for having great running backs. He would have fit that, stereotype perfectly with the history of running backs that Georgia has there. But TCU does not have that, and they were in desperate need of a guy like him. So not only is he going to get playing time right off the bat, but he's going to make an immediate impact on the field. And he, this year, could maybe be the difference in a game or two. Could get them an extra win or two. And this is a year that a lot of people are expecting Patterson's squad to bounce back. They think that TCU can maybe win anywhere between 8 to 10 games, which is a lot for me. But with that guy as head coach, I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, Doug is coming back for a sophomore year. He's only going to get better.
Well, and that's the beauty of this too, is if you get Zach Evans here and he starts right off the bat, Duggan's only a sophomore, he could stick around for 3 more years, sophomore, junior, senior. If you can get Evans to stay for 3 more years as well, then you can start talking about TCU kind of being similar to that team we saw back in like 2014, 2015, when they were making, the Peach Bowl and right around that playoff area. Because like you said, Duggan's only going to get better. Thought he had a great freshman year, all things considered. You put Evans alongside him, they lose Jalen Rager at wide receiver, but they'll bounce back from that. They've got plenty of others to kind of build up that wide receiver core. I think, 2021, 2022, these guys all stick around. We could be talking about TCU as maybe the favorite going into the Big 12 instead of, for once, not Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Gary Patterson has signed some great classes over these past couple of years.
He has. And yeah, like you mentioned, I think that also has to be something of note is you talk about TCU being smaller, you talk about them being smaller, especially within enrollment. Not saying the Big 12 is not worthy, I guess, but the SEC, I think, and the Big 10 certainly get more national spotlight than the Big 12, Pac-12, and ACC. And that played in recruiting as well. He's done a good job with recruiting, and you haven't heard about it. It's not gaining that much national attention. And I think that's how Gary Patterson likes it. He likes being that underdog. He likes things flying under the radar because, a year like 2020, 2021, that'll be the year they win 10 or 11 games, and it catches everybody off guard. I think that's exactly how he wants it.
Oh, yeah. And Tennessee, they've been on fire on the recruiting trail lately.
Oh, man, don't even get me started on recruiting. I mean, the fact that we've seen – I saw something today. Tennessee, going into next year, I believe, has the second-ranked recruiting class, and right behind them is North Carolina. And, I think the Post was saying these are not basketball recruiting rankings. These are football recruiting rankings. Tennessee is second in the country right now, and North Carolina is number 3. And that absolutely blows my mind.
North Carolina.
Yeah, the scripts are changing. Until proven otherwise, Alabama's going to be up there. Clemson's going to be up there. Ohio State will be up there. But teams that normally do not challenge them, every now and then LSU might beat an Alabama. We saw it last year. Every now and then Clemson might slip up. Maybe a Michigan or a Wisconsin can upend Ohio State. But now you've got teams that normally aren't that good or haven't been in a while, like a Tennessee, like a North Carolina, that can start challenging the top dogs within their conference. And that's where it starts to get fun. People are talking about football becoming too monotonous and too predictable. These type of recruiting trails that we're following with Jeremy Pruitt and Mack Brown, that's what's going to make football very unpredictable and finally fun again over these next few years.
Oh, yeah. A lot of players want to play for Mack Brown. He has so much coaching experience, and he's won a national title, which says something,
Well, it's crucial. He's a coach that, has a national title to his name, and he's won everywhere he's been. He won at North Carolina the first time around. He obviously did great at Texas. That's where he got his national title. And then, of course, his second time around, only been at UNC for 1 year, but I can't stress to people enough when they talk about it. You look on paper, they go 7-6. That doesn't look great. But every single one of those 6 losses were decided by 7 points or less. And there's a chance, and that includes that 1-point loss to Clemson. So they win those games. UNC is in the ACC championship and one win away from the playoff. I mean, that's how close to a special season they had last year. And now they return everybody this year. They very well could do that. They could challenge to win that Coastal and face off against Clemson in the title game. So I love Mack Brown. Loved him during his time at Texas. Love that he came out of retirement now. And you have no idea how excited I am to watch the North Carolina football. No loyalty to them whatsoever, but just the way he's recruiting and the way he's kind of turned that program around in less than a year is just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, and they're definitely deserving the hype for this year. I know some people are saying that they don't deserve it just because they went 7-6 last year, but you mentioned that all their 6 losses come from 7 points or fewer.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's where you kind of have to do a little research here and a little investigating for yourself. You flash up, if I give you a picture of the ACC standings from last year, North Carolina is not going to be that high on them. Even though they played against Virginia, and had they won that game, they probably could have won the Coastal. You look at that and you go, oh, they're 7-6. That they weren't that good. Well, take a deeper look into their schedule and the results of every single one of those games, and you realize they really were good. They were just a young team. And I think that inexperience and, that youth was kind of the difference maker in why they weren't able to win the close games. And I think that's really going to change in their favor going into this upcoming year.
Yeah, that Auburn versus North Carolina game should be a good one. Should be high scoring too.
Oh, absolutely. I'm psyched for that. I am very psyched for that. In Atlanta, you've got Gus Malzahn and Chad Morris are both big offensive minds. And you should see Auburn take a bit. They weren't bad offensively, but they weren't great. And then you've got Bo Nix and his core wide receivers. You've practically got the entire UNC offense coming back with Sam Howell leading the charge, who some think is a Heisman contender. I mean, it's going to be fun. And that's going to be telling, because it's going to be telling to see if Auburn's legit in the West or if the hype of UNC was real or not. Because if they go in there and just get killed by the team out of the SEC, people are going to write them off very quickly. But if they go in there and win that game, people are going to start taking them very seriously. So, it's huge I think it's bigger for Mack Brown and his squad than it is for Malzahn and Auburn.
Yeah, and Auburn also loses a lot of starting on that defense. That defense was very good last year.
Exactly. And that game comes in week 2. So, I think a lot of people don't believe it, but sometimes it does take a few weeks to get those new pieces kind of feeling all right and correcting a few things. And with that game being in week 2 and with North Carolina returning so much experience, there's a good chance Auburn could lose that game and that they could get caught off guard. I mean, they usually play well at those neutral site games in those season openers. They did it against Oregon last year. Did it a few years ago. I can't remember who it was against, but played very well in a season opening game. So you never want to write them off. But I agree, that defensive line was one of the best in the countries, and now it's basically all gone. So I'm very interested to see kind of how they restructure their defense and how quickly those players can kind of fill those gaps left by Derek Brown and Nick Coe and guys like that, Marlon Davidson, everybody along that line.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it. Well, hey, Mitch, I'm going to get to this guy. We've had him on hold way too long, but I love talking with you. Some great content, and we'll definitely catch you next week for sure.
All right. Have a good night.
Hey, you too, man. All right, we have had you on hold way too long, and we apologize for that. How's it going?
It's all good. Good to hear your voice. How you been?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good, yeah. Just want to make sure you're doing okay, because I know you had a couple of health scares, and, I'm a big sports fan, but we're also all human beings, and we were concerned about you. So just want to make sure you and the family are staying safe.
Man, I really appreciate that. I'm doing a whole lot better. Obviously, a couple weeks, we haven't had a live stream in a while. The goal was to do this every Wednesday, and then the health scare came up. Just a routine, appendectomy, nothing too freaky, but kind of kept me sidelined for about a week or two. So, but fully healthy now, fully healed. Family's doing great, staying as healthy and sane as we can. So I greatly appreciate that.
Good, that's awesome. And were you diagnosed with COVID-19 as well? Did you say that? Did you mention that earlier?
I was. That was back in February, and was luckily able to get over that before all of this hit and really kind of took off nationally. But I was hit with one of the earlier cases back in February.
Oh man! Now, just answer this for me, because there's some people who are very close to my family and I, and they're of the opinion that this is not that serious, that this is completely overblown, and we're listening to them like, wow, that's interesting. So I just want to get your thoughts as someone who's been through that experience, and just, is this overblown or is it very serious? Because I think it's pretty serious. So
yeah, I from a guy that's had it firsthand, yeah, it's definitely very serious, because that was truly one of the sickest moments I've had in my entire life. It's one of the worst I've ever felt. So a lot of people say, it's the flu. It's just an overblown flu. And I would disagree with that, because, when I was diagnosed with that, and I actually wasn't even diagnosed until recently. They went back and they looked through some records, and I actually still had brought over pneumonia still in my lungs. So when they did x-rays with that appendectomy, they looked in there and said, you still got pneumonia. And they looked through some paperwork and oh, you actually did have, COVID. And when I first got it, I took about 2 or 3 flu tests from 2 or 3 different doctors, and they all came back as negative. So they couldn't figure out what it was. And so a lot of people do think it's overblown, and they think it's not that big a deal. But it was absolutely miserable, and I couldn't figure out what the problem was. And I think that was the scariest thing, is because it lasted nearly 2 weeks, which is, with people around my age, it's how long they say it usually takes. And, they just couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And you just kind of had to weather the storm until you finally felt good enough to start kind of getting back on your feet. So a lot of people will say that. A lot of people will say it's a hoax. A lot of people will say that it's not that bad, but I certainly beg to differ.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for saying that and just giving me some reassurance, because I was just really surprised, because the people that I'm referring to, they're very religious and faith oriented, and it really surprised us. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Everybody has their own opinion.
Yeah, they do. Everybody has their own opinion, and the fact of the matter is, we can believe what we want to believe. when it comes to this type of virus, but ultimately we don't really have a say in it. You know, the state officials and the feds, they're going to kind of dictate what happens, if we're going to reopen, if we're not going to reopen. And look, I've hated it, as I'm sure many of us have. You know, it's a horrible situation with everything closed. People are getting laid off of their jobs. Schools are closing. Now people are saying schools might not reopen. People are going to be out of jobs for much longer than they anticipated. I mean, this is a horrible situation for everyone. But it is something that we're just going to have to weather together, and nothing that not one individual person can do themselves. You know, you can talk all you want saying it's not that big a deal, this is stupid, but what are you going to do about it? You can't. You just have to, you know, brace yourself and try to be as smart as you can with this stuff.
Right. Yeah, crazy times. So, all right, let's move on and talk some football. So, hypothetically, should we have a season? It sounds like we might all be without fans. I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, besides Virginia Tech, is USC, because they're returning a lot of talent, and it's very intriguing because Clay Helton's on a hot seat again, and got a great quarterback in Keaton Slovis, and I think he really made an outstanding hire with Todd Orlando. I think Todd Orlando is a brilliant defensive mind. So I think in order for Clay to keep his job, they're going to go 9-3, probably 10-2, and go to the Pac-12 championship game. But yeah, your thoughts on the Trojans?
Oh man, I tell you what. Look, you look at USC, and they're a program year in and year out that with the talent that they usually get, and being in that state, California, a recruiting hotspot, should be a top 15 team every single year, and they're not. I'm with you. I fully agree that we know Clay Helton's on the hot seat, but Keaton Slovis, I think, is arguably, really right now, could be the best quarterback in the Pac-12. I mean, all things considered, with the departure of Justin Herbert and, you know, Jacob Eason's gone, that role of best quarterback in the conference could go to Keaton Slovis. He has one of the best wide receiver cores in the Pac-12 right now. Loses a few big ones, but he's still got like guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and plenty of others. And then Graham Harrell's still there. So while Clayton Helton has talent offensively, he's got a great offensive coordinator. And like you mentioned, I thought Todd Orlando was a fantastic hire. I was surprised to see him, you know, have to part ways with Texas. You know, Tom Herman decided he's going to bring in Chris Ash. But I think this schedule, I've looked at their schedule, the schedule lines up for this to be a successful season. But like you said, USC should be a top 15 team year in and year out, and their fans expect to be a top 15 year in and year out. And if they don't get to that point, then it's a failure. It's a disappointing season. So I think you're right. I think 9 wins is the limit. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if 9 wins is good enough to keep his job. I think you've got to get to the Pac-12 championship. So maybe you win 9 games in the regular season. Pac-12 is relatively weak. You get to the Pac-12 championship. You win that. You win your bowl. Okay, you're 11-3 at that point. That's a good season, and you're not going to get fired. But I think anything less than 9, and maybe anything less than the Pac-12 championship appearance, he's out. The talent is there to make a run. It's just the question is, can Clay Helton utilize it as best he can?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's kind of the same situation with Virginia Tech. You know, returning a ton of talent, and you know, obviously Bud Foster is gone, but they made a hire within the staff in Justin Hamilton, and don't know too much about him, but I think it's a smart hire. Yeah, I think the jury is still out on Fuente. I like Fuente. I don't love him, and the reason why I don't love him is because he's done an okay job at recruiting, and I think the most disappointing thing is he hasn't recruited well in the state of Virginia. And you talked about California is a great recruiting base. Well, so is Virginia, and a lot of those players are going to Ohio State, Penn State, Clemson, Florida State, and even Virginia. I mean, you should never lose a recruit to UVA unless their parents played there or went there. You should never lose a recruit to UVA. So I think the jury's still out for Fuente. I think same thing. I think he should go 9-3, probably win the division, but their schedule is going to be tricky. There's some tricky games on there. I think the ACC is going to be much better, in my opinion. So, yeah, give up on the Hokies.
Yeah, I think I talked about it, you know, as we get further down the schedule previews, you'll know kind of how the Hokies are going to look, especially defensively, week 2. That's one of those marquee matchups we were talking about with Penn State. They play Penn State, and they get to host them at Lane Stadium, which is going to be huge. What an atmosphere that's going to be, and what an opportunity, really, that's going to be for Fuente and the Hokies to get a huge win over what's probably going to be a top 10 team. But I think when we talk about that on the Penn State schedule preview, because unfortunately I didn't have Virginia Tech in my way too early top 25, I mentioned that I think they're one of the most experienced teams in the ACC. They bring back so much from that team last year that, as we know, lost to Kentucky in the Belk Bowl. Obviously, losing Bud Foster as defensive coordinator, just being the legend that he is and being within the program for so long, that's going to hurt. But I don't think it's going to hurt, and you're going to see a major step back like a lot of people may think, because there is so much talent there for Virginia Tech. Now, you mentioned Justin Fuente, that you're not big, and I want to touch on what you said with recruiting, saying that obviously you should never lose a recruit to Virginia. Of course, those they have family ties or something. With a state like Virginia, and states like, I look at smaller states, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, in that little southeastern region, that states are a little bit smaller, you have to, in my opinion, put a border around your state when it comes to recruiting. You can't do that at Florida, in the state of Florida. You can't do that in California. State's too big. You're not going to, and there are too many schools within that state for you to get all of them to come to you. But really, in the state of Virginia, it's Virginia and Virginia Tech. Those are probably going to be your top 2 that you want to go to. And Fuente has to put that border around the state and prevent players from leaving and going to, as you mentioned, a Clemson or a Florida State or somebody like that, as tempting as that may be. Because while, Clemson's great right now and they're a hot place to go, Virginia Tech's got such a rich history when it comes to football. And as of late under Fuente, they haven't been bad. It's not like they're struggling. But I'm expecting big things from them this year. I think, we talked about that coastal division. We talked so much about North Carolina here a few minutes ago. Virginia Tech's a team that could certainly challenge for that. Virginia, not so much this year. They're going to take a step back. But it could be North Carolina, and I really think it could be Virginia Tech. I think those are going to be your top 2 teams to come out of there. Maybe Miami, maybe, probably not. So I'm personally expecting big things. I'd say, if I'm just throwing a number out there now, I'd say at least 8 wins, but could very well see it being more.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't expect them to beat Penn State. I think Penn State just has too much talent. But I think because it's a non-conference game, it won't hurt your season. I think the biggest concern for me is the 3 conference road games at North Carolina, at Louisville, and then at Pittsburgh. Those are going to be tricky. And the thing is with at Louisville and at Pittsburgh, it's on a short week, which is, I don't get it. I thought conferences did away with back-to-back road games short weeks. I know the Pac-12 did, I don't know if the ACC did, but yeah, that kind of concerns me because I think the Coastal, like I said, is going to be a lot better this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, last year we talked about how wide open the Coastal was. No one knew who was coming out of it. I mean, Pittsburgh at the time was the reigning Coastal champs. Some had high hopes for Miami. I don't really think anybody expected anything out of UNC. Virginia Tech, of course, was in the mix. No one knew. This year, it's kind of the same way, except, we knew last year that whoever won the Coastal was going to get annihilated by Clemson, and that's what happened. Virginia got, just annihilated. This year, yeah, the winner probably will lose to Clemson again, assuming Clemson gets there, but it's going to be much more competitive. I think it's more wide open, but like you said, much more competitive. And I'm telling you, do not sleep on, you mentioned those 3 big road games. You can't sleep on Louisville, or Louisville if DM's still on here watching. But, Louisville is a team that I'm terrified of this year. They're not because of their defense, but because of their offense. They're fast, they score a lot of points, and that's how they're planning on winning games. It's not by their defense, but just we're going to play faster and we're going to outscore you. And I think that's going to prove very difficult. That's going to be a tough test for this Virginia Tech defense without Bud Foster, without a doubt.
Yeah, they really made a great hire with Scott Satterfield. Did such a great job with alma mater, Appalachian State, and nobody expected Louisville. And I think you said that when you were previewing Louisville, that nobody expected them to get 8 wins and a bowl game win against Mississippi State, and he definitely exceeded expectations. So yeah, I'm high on Louisville this year, and I think Pittsburgh is going to be good as well. But Yeah, I mean, Louisville, I think the future's bright for them.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, look, this is the year. I think the FPI has them going 9-3, 10-2, somewhere around there. And I could very well see him doing that with the way their schedule lines up. And if he keeps recruiting at a very high level, he's going to turn, Louisville into Appalachian State 2.0 just in the ACC. And I'm personally all for that. I was a fan of his at App State, and I'm already thrilled with what he's doing with the Cardinals right now. So very bright things ahead for them, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, hopefully we have college football this season. But yeah, great talking with you, GG. Glad you're doing well. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, and thanks for calling in.
Yeah, no problem. Take care, bud.
You too, man. All right. Tons of calls, and once again, thank you all for calling in so much. Thank you for all the support. That means a lot right there. So thank you guys all so much, and some good discussion tonight, guys. Excellent discussion from the calls across the board. Every single one of them had some great questions and lasted way longer than our 5-minute kind of cutoff, which, look, I'm all for conversations like that. So now I'm going to hit the chat. I promise you, haven't forgotten about you guys in the chat here tonight. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at it here. I'm going to scroll back up, but before we do, Trey Drew, if you're still on here with us, what's going on? It has been. Long time no see. So happy to see you. And Trey, if you're still on with us, live streams every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time. Just like we started tonight, it's the plan for next week, plan for the week after that. Of course, I'm barring another medical emergency or something like that. And of course, if that happens, you'll know well in advance. So, or assuming you will know well in advance. So every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. we're right here. So Trey, so good to see you. Now, I think I saw it earlier. Comic Dude 45. Wouldn't have known it was you. CD25. I'll make sure to put that in my brain. Hey, no need to apologize. Just glad you're here with us. Glad you're here with us. Glad you were able to catch a little bit of the stream, and hope all is going well. It's been a while since we've talked, so I'm sure you had to leave Rutgers early, I presume, especially with how bad it was getting in that northeast part of the country. But I hope everything's going well with you and your family. And Noah Vendrell just committed to us as a grad transfer quarterback. And as you mentioned, that is absolutely huge. Rutgers struggling at the quarterback position. Greg Schiano, though, unbelievable job recruiting already for Rutgers. You're probably not going to see those results and those improvements in year one in 2020. I certainly think you'll see it in terms of the attitude and spirit within the team and the competitiveness on the field. It just might not result in wins. But I think by year two, the Scarlet Knights could be flirting with a bowl game depending on how they fare in year one. I'm beyond hyped for Greg Schiano and what he's going to do with Rutgers. I know that's going to make you happy, Comic Dude. I know that's going to make DM happy and everybody else. But you guys have kind of brainwashed me a little bit. You guys have kind of gotten me on the Rutgers bandwagon. And I guess I can say I was on there before they got good, because they're going to get good again because they've been struggling for so long. So I'm very, very excited to see how that all plays out. So huge transfer quarterback pickup, without a doubt. Let's see who else we got here. Extreme Kane, what's going on? Good to see you. And I appreciate all those comments on the schedule preview. It's been a while since we've talked. So happy to have you here, my man. And CP Clossy, Chase. How's it going, Chase? I hope you're doing well, and I hope your family's doing well too. Good to have you. Good to have you if you're still on with us. All right, so now we're going to make our way back up towards the top of the chat here, because I want to make sure I don't miss too much here. Find out where we're at here. Comic Dude, Extreme Kane. So Scott, we were on the phone with him earlier talking Baylor football. He's very pleased that Baylor has a top 23, not top 25, top 23, mind you, class for the 2021 football season despite the coronavirus. And we've talked so much about COVID, and you hear about so much on the news. We don't like to talk too much about it here, but it is something that certainly plays a factor. We were talking about it earlier with the transfers. Guys in the transfer portal, how this virus might be impacting them and their decision on where they choose to play football, if in fact we do have a season. And then, of course, recruiting across the board. Coaches haven't been able to have in-home visits. And you recruit years in advance, guys. You're extending offers not to guys coming into football next year, but for the 22 class, for the 23 class. You've got to look ahead always as a head coach. And this virus has greatly impacted just the entire recruiting landscape. And despite all of that, teams like Tennessee, teams like North Carolina, Baylor, in Scott's case here, are still doing a pretty good job. And I think that's a lot of credit to how well the coaches are doing and how well their staff is doing it. Still extending invites and offers to recruits, still trying to meet with them through Zoom or FaceTime or emails or letters, however they choose to do it. They're still getting the job done. And that's what you have to do. You have to improvise, adapt, and overcome to any situation, especially as a college football coach. Ben Wyndham. First off, good to see you. I've seen your question a few times. We've been on the phone. Promise I didn't forget about you. Super pumped to have you here with us tonight. Thoughts on who the best team in the SEC East is? And I think you followed one up earlier with who do I think is going to win the SEC East. Look, I think, Ben, we've kind of discussed this before. It's certainly between Georgia and Florida right now as the best team in the East. Some could make a case for Tennessee, not as being the best, but a team that could be that sleeper pick, especially if they upset Florida. We mentioned that the Volunteers could maybe steal a win at Neyland Stadium. And if they do that, you're going to have Tennessee above Florida in the standings, at least for a little bit. And that could, right then, in September, ruin Florida's chances of winning the SEC East. Of course, they still have to go on to beat Georgia if they even want to have a chance at that. But to me, it's between the Dogs and the Gators. They meet on Halloween in Jacksonville, and that's probably going to be the SEC East championship game right there. And I'm back and forth on who I have winning that division. It's tough. It is tough. And normally in a game like that, I might look at home field advantage on who wins a game like that, and there's not home field advantage. It's in Jacksonville. But I think a lot of that, Ben, is going to depend on how well Jamie Newman plays. Does he live up to the hype? And I know Mitch has made it very clear that he's not buying into it. He's not buying into this Jamie Newman hype. He doesn't believe in it. And, I think it is premature to have him as like a top 5 in terms of odds to win the Heisman. I think that's a little ridiculous. I wouldn't have him up there. But I do think he's good. I think he's a very good quarterback coming out of Wake Forest. I think he has a chance to really provide Georgia the spark offensively that they've been looking for because Jake Fromm wasn't doing it. Good quarterback, not dogging on him. But Georgia did not have an electric offense that was just going to, score points at will. And you might need that here in the SEC, especially going up against an improving SEC East because Florida's coming for them. Tennessee's getting better. Kentucky is very, very good. Vanderbilt, not so much. South Carolina might be able to pull off a handful of upsets at home this year, maybe flirt with bowl eligibility. And then Missouri, I don't have high hopes for them this year. Eli Drinkwitz, not going to happen, guys. I hate to say it. Hope he proves me wrong. But you know how I stand on Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri right now, and I don't feel very good about it. So who's the best team in the SEC East, Ben? I know it's not the answer you want. It's Florida or Georgia. Right now, I'm going to say Georgia because I haven't been proven otherwise. It's Georgia until proven otherwise, and Florida has not seized their opportunity yet. And I will say this. If Florida wants to win the East, if Florida wants to try to get to the college football playoff, they've got to do it this year. They have to do it this year. Plain and simple. They've got the talent there. Georgia's losing a lot of key pieces. Newman addition was huge, but one player does not make an entire team. So if Florida wants to do it, it's got to be this year. Georgia's the best team in the East right now, but the gap between them and Florida is just that thin. It is very, very thin. John Hopkins, already gone, unfortunately. But, John, if you come back and watch the rest of this stream, certainly do not want NCAA basketball to get affected. Certainly don't want college basketball to get affected either. Look, we already missed out on March Madness. I can't go 2 years without March Madness. Certainly can't have that. I know you can't either because you actually have a team that's always in the hunt in Kentucky. But, John, if you do come back and watch this, sweet dreams. Going to bed tonight. Say he's heading out early, 8:48, going to bed. But understand, busy man, certainly happy to have you on the stream and certainly happy to see that customized introduction, as you always promised. Benjamin Orman saying that last year for North Carolina was a fluke, and as a North Carolina State fan, he's required to say that. Understand. No love lost between the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels. I get it. Still scrolling through the chat a little bit. Emperor of Rome. Something that I would love to see in future seasons is a throwback game where each team plays in an old uniform. Be fun to watch and would boost merchandise sales. Wow, that's absolutely brilliant. I'm not even going to lie. And Emperor of Rome, I think one thing you might remember a couple years ago, and I'm just sticking in the SEC for now. Other teams have done throwbacks and alternate uniforms. But Arkansas and Alabama played in 2014, I believe. I believe it was 2014. And Alabama played in Fayetteville, won that game 14-13. Still bitter about that one. But Arkansas wore 1964 throwback jerseys. So instead of a normal like cardinal red, it looked more almost purplish. It was like a darker, very, very dark maroon. And they had the slobbering hog. They had the old hog on the side of their helmet. And the fans went crazy over it. I was not a fan of them. But you ask any Arkansas fan now that knows what they're talking about, and they'll remember those jerseys, and they'll talk about how much they loved them and wish they would wear them more often. That's one team. I agree. You do that consistently, or at least just once a year, and you know what's going to happen ahead of time. On this date, we're going to wear this jersey. I think they would love it. I think the people would love it. And we're getting a call right here. We're going to put them on hold to finish that, but definitely a great topic. Man, we're going to put you on hold for 1 second, and we're going to get right to you, okay? Yeah, so Emperor of Rome, as you were saying, or as I was saying to your comment, I think it's a great idea. I think you would see a huge spike in merchandise sales. You could sell, obviously, T-shirts. You could sell jerseys. Obviously, you have some fancy tickets with that, maybe some throwback tickets to go with that type of game. The two teams agree with it. Even better if it was a rivalry game. You get a rivalry game where the two teams wear old throwback jerseys from, you can go as far back as the 80s even. It doesn't have to be as far back as the 60s. But I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea. And I think you would see a huge spike in merchandise sales. Once again, especially if you knew ahead of time we were going to wear these jerseys against this opponent on this date. I think it'd be awesome. I think it would be absolutely awesome. So, someone needs to pick you up, my man. Someone needs to pick you up on a marketing staff at a university or maybe within the NCAA. Maybe you could go work within the NCAA and actually get some sense into them because, as many of you know, I'm not the biggest fan of them at all. Benjamin Orman, I appreciate that. Let's get these likes up. Please like the video. We've got 22 watching now, highest we've had tonight. And I want to thank every single one of you for watching and joining us on this Wednesday night. But hit that like button. Hit that thumbs up button. Helps us out more than you guys know. So just with the click of a button, you're helping us big time. Big time. So make sure to hit that like button. We greatly appreciate it. And Ben, once again, thank you for shouting that one out. DM, once again, we're about to get to this call, but DM, super pumped that you're still here. Didn't know for sure. Always like to check in, but I should have known. So let's get to this caller real quick. Who we have on the line with us? You still there, bud?
Yeah, sorry.
That's all good. Who do we have with us tonight?
I haven't been here in a while, so.
Is this Hunter?
Yep.
All right, Hunter. How's it going?
Doing great. It's been a while since I've been on the talk show, but it's good to be back.
Hey, well, we're certainly glad to have you back, Hunter. I'm glad you're doing well. And look, long time no see, but better late than never.
Yep.
So what's going on tonight? What do you want to talk about?
I was going to talk about what are your thoughts on Virginia right now. What are your thoughts on Virginia and Virginia Tech? Because I'm going to get into that ACC opinions from you.
You're going to do what now? ACC what?
I'm going to get those ACC opinions from you.
All right. Well, we talked about Virginia Tech earlier, Hunter, and we discussed that for a little while, and how I do think that Virginia Tech and the Hokies are one of the more experienced teams in the ACC coming into 2020. I think Fuente's got a very solid crew coming back from a bowl team last year that nearly won their bowl game over Kentucky. And they're a team that I think is going to be very, very good. Very well could win the Coastal, even though they lose Bud Foster as defensive coordinator. Virginia, on the other hand, they won the Coastal last year, as we remember, and got annihilated by Clemson, but held their own against Florida in that Orange Bowl. I think that was a performance that a lot of people didn't expect. I think a lot of people thought Virginia would roll over and get annihilated by the Gators, and they didn't. But unfortunately, as I'm sure you know too, Hunter, Virginia loses a lot of starters from that team last year. One of the best teams in Virginia history, they lose. That includes Bryce Perkins. That includes Bryce Hall. That includes Jordan Mack on defense, both those guys on defense. So they lose a lot of starters, and they open the season up against Georgia, who's going to be a top 5 team in the country when they play on Labor Day Monday. So they're going to take a step back. I think they're still going to go bowling, but they're just probably not going to win the Coastal again. It's really going to come down to their quarterback play. Brennan Armstrong, maybe Keaton Thompson, who knows? But a lot of factors at play for the Cavaliers, and if I'm picking a team in Virginia, out of those two, I'm probably picking Virginia Tech right now.
All right, so I got 2 more questions for you.
All right, bring them on.
All right, what do you think about the Bengals selecting Joe Burrow? Do you think that it was the right pick, or do you think that they should have held off for a little bit? That's because they should have, they only had 1 pick, but do you think it was the right pick to pick Joe Burrow?
I think, sometimes, Hunter, when you go to the NFL draft, teams sometimes have to look at it from the standpoint of we've got to select the best player on the board rather than, maybe the best player for us. And I'm not saying Joe Burrow was the best player in this draft, but he was certainly the best quarterback in this draft. The Bengals had made up their mind well before the draft even started that they were going to probably part ways with Andy Dalton. And I hate that. Because I might trigger some people here, but I was an Andy Dalton fan. I thought he was a good quarterback. I really did. I know he didn't. He never got the Bengals a playoff win, but I don't really credit that all to him. I credit that to Marvin Lewis during his time there. So, Hunter, yes, they did make the right choice because they knew they were getting rid of Andy Dalton, and they didn't have a quarterback once he was going to leave. So they naturally took the best quarterback available, and that was Joe Burrow. I would have liked to have seen Andy Dalton stick around for a little while, or maybe stick around at least this year and allow Joe Burrow to learn with him. Exactly. Allow Joe Burrow to back him up and learn. Now, Andy Dalton's not one of the best quarterbacks in history. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he sure as heck isn't bad. And in the right system, he can get a team to – I wholeheartedly believe he could get a team to a Super Bowl with the right system. But because they parted ways, I do think that the Bengals made the right selection in taking Joe Burrow. And I think everybody knew right after, the national championship, if not beforehand, that Burrow was probably going to go number 1 overall, regardless of who was going to hold that pick.
All right, but I have 1 more question for you, and that will be it.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think that the best game in the NFL is going to be next year. Is probably going to be, if the Ravens and Chiefs play, that's going to be a really good game.
I believe they do.
Especially when it's in like a crucial playoff time. They're both in the AFC Championship. So that will be one of the best games to go down in the decade so far.
Well, that's pretty bold. Pretty bold, Hunter, but I agree. And I believe they do meet in the regular season. I don't remember what week it is. But it could be a preview of the AFC Championship game. Honestly, I think a lot of people thought it would be this year. That the Ravens and the Chiefs would meet up in the AFC title game, and the Titans kind of ruined that for everybody. But I do think that the best NFL game, one of the best I've ever watched, was 2 years ago. It was the Rams and the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. And
no, that was a good game. That was a good game.
Absolutely. It was one of the best games I've ever seen. I think this Ravens-Chiefs matchup, whether it be in the regular season or the AFC title game, if, of course, they get there, keep in mind the NFL expanded their playoffs to 7 teams per conference, could be very reminiscent of that because both have great quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Their defenses are improving by the day, and both teams are hungry. Chiefs are reigning Super Bowl champs. They've got a title to defend. The Ravens were big Super Bowl favorites for many going into the playoffs, and they got put out in the first round or the first game for them, which was very disappointing. So both are going to be hungry and have a lot of things to prove in 2020, which when that happens and you've got teams like that meet up, it always makes for great football.
All right, that's all I wanted to hear from you, and thanks for answering my questions, and hopefully you have a good night.
Hey, Hunter, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for calling in, and don't stay a stranger. Call back soon.
All right.
All right, man. Thank you. Well, that was Hunter, who, as many may recall, or maybe not, was our first ever caller when we first started doing these live streams, live calling shows last summer. It's almost been a year, believe it or not, since we started doing these. I know we haven't done them as regularly, but first ever caller. And as he said, it had been a while, but he's back, and we are certainly glad he was back and had some great questions for us as well. So, Hunter, thank you so much for calling. Cyclone Mitch, we're going to make our way through the rest of the chat here and then probably wrap things up here a little bit. We're an hour and a half strong. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. But Cyclone Mitch, Brock Purdy and his brother Chuba Purdy, already Heisman odds. Have Heisman odds. And yeah, of course they do. More so, I would say, for Brock. I'm actually more surprised to see Chuba getting those type of odds, even though they'd probably be relatively small. But look, Brock Purdy is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. Might be up there. Really, he's top 3 for me. Top 3. I can't put Spencer Rattler up there until I see him play. We knew what to expect out of Jalen Hurts. We knew what to expect out of Kyler Murray. I don't know what to expect out of Spencer Rattler yet. So a bunch of talk right now. You got to perform well on the field for me to actually give you a good rank, even though he's still in my top half. But Sam Ehlinger is probably up there, number 1 as of right now. Purdy right behind him at 2 for now. And yeah, no doubt he's got some Heisman odds. I'm very, very excited to see Iowa State this year. 2 quick basketball. What's good? Not much. We're doing great. Happy to have you. Happy to see you. Drew Ferguson, also happy to see you here as well. From what he's heard, the NCAA Board of Directors, we know football is there's no school reopening. Right, if school does not reopen, they're probably not going to have football because that's where you draw the fine line between where players can maybe get paid or not. Look, you can't expect school to stay closed and to do online classes, but expect your student athletes to show up on campus to play football because then you're basically treating them like employees. That's where you have to draw the fine line there. If you have a university that says, all right, we're doing classes online for the fall, none of you are going to move into your dorms, but wait, yes, football and basketball players and our money makers, you need to be here on campus to play. While they probably want to play, it would still be unfair to them, and that's where you have to draw that fine line there. If schools shut down, the key word, student athlete, it's student. If it was just athlete, you better be there on campus, but you're also a student. They got classes just like everybody else. If schools shut down, sports are probably not going to be happening either. More than likely. The Dank Chronicles. We've talked about Pittsburgh a little bit. He's predicting Pittsburgh to go 10-2. Also got a commitment from a 6'6", 210-pound quarterback from Texas. So that's going to be a huge get for the Panthers. And as you and I have discussed a little bit in the comments, Pat Narduzzi on the hot seat, baby, going into 2020. I didn't think so, but you certainly do, and you certainly know a little bit more about the inside scoop in Pittsburgh than I. Call from Philadelphia. Let's take it and then get back to the chat.
Jordan, the Dank Chronicle.
To accept, press 1.
Well, there we go.
Send a voicemail. Press okay. I've sent the caller's voicemail. Goodbye.
And it went to voicemail. Hey, Jordan, call right back. I did not hit voicemail. Don't know why I did that. So give me a call back real quick. I apologize. Too quick basketball. I'm certainly going to get to you. John Sarian, certainly going to get to you as well. And DM, I saw your comment. Yes, you got me on the Bison bandwagon as well, talking about Rutgers, and now I'm, in a way, a North Dakota State supporter as well. A lot of FCS talk with DM and plenty of others as well. And it's certainly a division of college football, and a level of college football that doesn't nearly get the amount of attention and respect they deserve. But we all know about North Dakota State. We all know about how good they are and how dangerous they are, and how Oregon better be watching out in Week 1. So yeah, certainly hooked me on that and got me hooked on some FCS football as well. All right, let's try this again. All right, you there, bud?
Yes, I am here.
All right, there we go. Yeah, we had I don't know what just happened there, but we got you now.
That is okay. I'm actually calling from Pittsburgh. My cell phone company is a little bit half backwards.
Okay, all right. Hey, well, I guess that works. That's probably fitting since we're probably going to be talking about Pittsburgh, right?
Oh, we are. You know how long I've been annoying your channel about the Pitt Panthers.
Of course. How could I forget?
Oh, yeah. See, my predictions for this season is there is no reason Pitt should not go 10-2. There's only two teams I see them losing to. That's Notre Dame and either Virginia Tech or Virginia. It's one of them two. I see them beating everybody else.
All right, I'm gonna do you a solid here. I'm gonna pull up Pittsburgh's schedule right now because, of course, I don't have memorized off the top of my head. But let's just take a look how favorable this is. Of course, Notre Dame is going to be a very difficult game. Yeah, so I'm not, of course, sharing predictions here, but I'm going to kind of go along with what you're talking about. So you think they lose to possibly Notre Dame, which is in Pittsburgh, off a bye week for you guys, which could benefit you strongly. So possibly Notre Dame.
It could, but I mean, the likelihood of us actually doing that is very slim to none. I'm not saying it hasn't happened because we've taken down Notre Dame several times.
Of course, yes, you have. And look, you other than Notre Dame, you have taken down some top dogs, both in the ACC and non-conference. So I'm certainly not going to put it past you guys.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it all relies on how well Kenny Pickett can play. I'm not concerned about the defense whatsoever because we have some freshmen that are going to end up starting that are just big. I think Bronson Taylor is 6'7", 300-pound defensive tackle freshman.
Right. Well, and you guys had your defensive line last year was extremely underrated. I mean, how many? I can't remember how many sacks you guys had. Over 40, I think, going into that bowl game.
We had 51 by the end of the bowl game.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was around 46, 47 going into the bowl game, which was just ridiculous. Which I'm like, once again, that's when you talked about defensive lines last year. You talked about Auburn. You talked a little bit about LSU. You talked about some of the big dogs that were relevant nationally. And here was Pittsburgh that was one of the best in the country, and no one was talking about them.
Oh, yeah, and it's because of their offense. Their offense was so bad.
Yes, we can agree with that. It was bad. It was pretty rough. And I'm looking at your schedule here.
A.J. Davis only didn't even rush for 600 yards. I think Kenny Pickett might have actually had more rushing yards than him.
Yes, I think you're correct. And Kenny Pickett's a guy, man. You and I both know is he's just not consistent. Some days he has a really, really good game, and then the other he's just absolutely horrible. So that's one of my.
It's every game, in my opinion. It's every game he's not consistent. Because I'll bring up that UCF game, for instance. They were up, 21 points, and then all of a sudden Kenny Pickett kept throwing interceptions.
Yep.
He kept getting sacked.
Yeah, I mean, you were definitely lucky to escape with that, considering you blew the lead, and then it came down to the Pitt special, as they say.
We're still talking about that here. That's the only good thing we have left to talk about.
I'm sure. I mean, it was one of the best moments of the college football season, though, because you dethroned Central Florida. They had just annihilated Stanford the week before. And with that loss to Pittsburgh, all the talks came back of how they weren't ready to consistently play Power 5 opponents, and that, look, you can beat one Power 5 opponent, but you can't beat two in a row. And so I think you did the country a huge service by doing that.
Oh, definitely. I personally feel Pitt, though, should actually move out of the ACC completely into the Big Ten.
Okay.
Here's the reason why. I think Pitt should move to the Big Ten because a lot of the Big Ten teams that surround Pittsburgh, it wouldn't be that much more difficult for them to travel to. Ohio State, for instance. Michigan wouldn't even be that far. It's actually only a 6-hour drive from where I live to Ann Arbor.
Okay. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but when you look at geographically within the ACC, I mean, you've got, Duke and North Carolina. Both of those being in the state of North Carolina. Grand scheme of things, Miami, Florida State, not a horrible travel distance geographically. You've got Virginia Tech. Geographically, looking from Pittsburgh to the teams around them in the ACC, it makes sense.
It does, and see, that's the great thing, too, about where Pitt is at. They fit very well geographically in the ACC. I just think it would help Pitt's program as far as recruiting goes if they would move into the Big Ten because, like I said to you before, I think it was your last video or the video prior, Pitt should be up there with the Clemsons. They should be up there with Ohio State, but they're just not.
Yeah, and they really haven't been for a very, very long time. What was it that I said the other day? It was they haven't had you said they need to go 10-2 or 9-3, and I don't think they've had a 9-win season since like 2009.
Yeah, I can't remember what exactly I said. Logically, I'm hoping for 10-2, but logically, it's probably either going to be another 7-5 or I'd say best 9-3.
Yeah, I could see that maybe being the ceiling for this squad. I'm looking at your schedule here, and you mentioned the Notre Dame game. That's obviously going to be extremely tough. I don't like the road game at North Carolina because I'm buying into the hype, and I think they're going to be very dangerous. Personally, so I'm looking.
Oh, I love Mac Brown. I grew up watching Mac Brown my whole entire life.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him myself. Caught the back end of his career at Texas, and then of course this time at North Carolina, and so I don't like that, and I like how well they're playing. So I don't like that for Pittsburgh's chances. Getting to host Virginia Tech's big. Georgia Tech's a non-factor for a while at least. They're not going to really compete against anybody. Honestly, you mentioned Virginia Tech, Virginia. I think you stand more competition from Virginia Tech than Virginia, even though that Virginia game's on the road. I think the Hokies are going to be a tougher test on that Friday night in Pittsburgh.
Well, didn't Virginia lose quite a bit of people?
They did. That's what I'm saying. I think Virginia Tech's going to be tougher because I think Virginia is going to take a pretty big step back from that team that we saw win the Coastal last year.
Yeah, and I do feel Pitt will win the Coastal. I do. And if they do make it to the championship, the ACC title game, we all know who's waiting there. We all know who's waiting there. The only other team that could probably give Clemson a run is North Carolina.
Exactly. And that would require them to get out of the Coastal. Yeah, and that would require the Tar Heels to win the Coastal, which they host Pittsburgh.
Oh, definitely. One final thing that I will bring up so I can get other people on the line
sure.
is if Pitt does not win the ACC championship, I guarantee you next year they will. There's just, once Kenny Pickett's gone, the starting quarterback position is wide open because we have no seniors as far as quarterback on the team. We just got this commit from Texas, 6'6", 215-pound quarterback.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but I know he's huge. And, that doesn't always work out because the bigger you are, the slower you are.
Of course. But
the recruiting is just ridiculous. I mean, we're only ranked 45 in the nation. We should be much higher than that.
I do agree you should be much higher than 45th. I mean, that's just a little bit above middle of the pack when it comes to just recruiting across the entire country. So,
Yeah, we finally broke Michigan. We've never recruited. No, the last recruit from Michigan we've had was Avonte Maddox, and we all know where he's ended up. He's in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah, not too far of a travel or a move for him. No,
definitely not.
Yeah.
And see, that was the thing about the Quick Lane Bowl. He went back to the Quick Lane Bowl for Pitt to cheer them on. And that was one of actually to me, that bowl game was the most competitive one out of all the bowl games.
It was a fantastic bowl game, absolutely. That game came down to the very last second. It was an absolute thriller.
No, it definitely was. And I expect good things from Pitt this year. But unfortunately, I do got to go because I do have a newborn child here.
Oh, well, hey, congratulations.
The baby monitor's going off.
All right, man. Well, congrats. Yeah, definitely go take care of that. We'll discuss more in the future.
All right. I will harass you on your channel later on.
That sounds like a plan. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Absolutely. You too. All right, guys. You heard it here first. Pittsburgh will be the ACC champions in 2021. Not this year, but next year. Pittsburgh will win the ACC. And we'll come back to that. Look, if it happens, he's going to look like an absolute prophet. He's going to be the gridiron expert, not me. And, hey, look, anything can happen in the world of college football. So I'm not dogging on him at all because, hey, it all remains to be seen. So real quick, going through the last bit of these chats here before we wrap up. Almost coming up on 2 hours here. 2 quick basketball thoughts on Iowa State. Talked about them a little bit. Iowa State, to me, top tier of the Big 12 right now. There's 5 teams in the Big 12 that are going to really, I think, compete for that spot in the Big 12 championship. And I've got Iowa State up there around 2nd or 3rd in the Big 12 this year. A very, very talented team. I love Brock Purdy at quarterback. If they can find some quick chemistry with a fairly new slate of wide receivers, they're going to be just fine. Because many are thinking this is going to be the most experienced team that Iowa State maybe has ever had. And I can see it. They get to host Oklahoma. If I'm not mistaken, they are hosting Oklahoma. Yes, they are. They do have to travel to Texas, but could very well pick up a win there. The schedule lines up for the Cyclones to have a very successful season, especially after a somewhat disappointing one last year. So I love Matt Campbell. I love the job that he's doing there. And I think they're in store for a big year. I really, really do. John Sarian, my gut says Tar Heel recruiting ceiling is higher than the Hokies due to coaches right now. Without a doubt. Look, Matt Brown is legendary. I'd take him over Justin Fuente any day. Any day I'm taking Matt Brown. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, won a national championship at Texas, has thrived everywhere he has been. So I 100% agree with that comment there. George Stice and Emperor of Rome talking about the Arizona Cardinals. And George, how am I feeling about them for next year? I'm, like you, am excited. I'm not a Cardinals fan, but I don't have a problem with the Cardinals. Actually, I remember supporting them big time with Kurt Warner because I wanted to see Kurt Warner in that final stage of his career pick up a Super Bowl win. So I was, of course, devastated when they lost to the Steelers. But look, Kyler Murray played extremely well. I think maybe better than some expected. The loss of David Johnson, it's okay. You got DeAndre Hopkins. You got DeAndre Hopkins for a beat-up running back. I don't know what the heck Bill O'Brien was thinking, but you came out on the better end of that deal, and we all know it. So you've got a very good rising quarterback. You have one of the best wide receiver cores, if not the best wide receiver core in the NFL, and a defense that certainly needs some work but did very well in this draft class. You did extremely well in this draft class. Isaiah Simmons, picking him up. He can play just about anywhere. I think he's going to make an immediate impact. Could win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So Cardinals are looking really, really good. Are they Super Bowl contenders? Probably not. Are they playoff contenders? Absolutely, especially now with the expanded playoff. Telling you, it doesn't sound like a lot going from 6 teams to 7, but it's going to make a world of difference for a lot of teams going into this season, and the Cardinals could be one of them. Keto, we haven't missed much. I know that was about 30 minutes ago, but haven't missed much. A couple great calls, couple new great discussions. Same old, but wouldn't trade it for the world. And Ben, anytime, super happy to answer those questions. I'm sorry it took so long to get there, but SEC East, going to be fun to watch this year. Benjamin Orman, yes. Rakeem Boyd from Arkansas, the running back there this year, one of the best running backs in the country, according to some sources out there. I think they have him ranked one of the 5th best returning running backs in the nation this year. Was on Last Chance U. I can't remember where. I can't remember the exact school he was at, but was on Last Chance U and is now the running back for the Razorbacks, choosing to come back for one final year with Arkansas, hoping just to probably not get him to a bowl game, just be relevant again, get him back on track. And look, he could very well do that. He could really contribute to that in Sam Pittman's first year. Scott Bankale, who has the better offense right now, Oklahoma or Oklahoma State? Keto says Oklahoma. Cyclone Mitch says Oklahoma. And I'm going to go opposite, and I'm going to say Oklahoma State. Discuss. Matthew Crook IV, super good to see you if you're still here. Who do I see winning the ACC Coastal? We've been talking a lot. We've been talking a lot about the Coastal here and how wide open it is. But Matthew, I really like North Carolina. I can't predict that now. I'm not really making that official now, but I like North Carolina winning that Coastal Division. I really, really do. Returning practically everybody from a team that went 7-6, all 6 losses by 1 possession or less. Sam Howell returns at quarterback, and with him, they have a fighting chance in every single game. We saw that last year. So I like them as kind of the front runners in that division. Kind of scrolling through the rest of the comments here. Stuff we've already kind of touched on a little bit. I'll make sure I don't miss anybody here. Keto, just left a few minutes ago, but I appreciate you. We'll see you next Wednesday. And, of course, thank you for all the support and keep up the great work on your page. Truly, Keto, you're well on your way. So I appreciate you and everything that you're doing. Joe, I'm not even going to repeat that. I'm not even going to repeat that comment, Joe. But yeah, we've been here for a while, man. About to hop off, but Joe, I appreciate you and all your wild comments that you bring, both in the live stream and on videos as well. So I hope you enjoyed your night. I hope you enjoyed your night and are enjoying the last tail end of this live stream here, and certainly hope to catch you on future videos. And future live streams as well. And we're talking about Trey Lance here from North Dakota State. And I think that's probably how we'll end here. DM talking about it, Hunter Shin talking about it, and how great North Dakota State was. Didn't throw an interception last year. And DM saying that Oregon is not dismissing his FCS status. They will blitz him early as he is not experienced with the FBS defensive speed and athleticism. And that could very well be true, especially with an Oregon team that's going to rely so heavily on their defense, especially right off the bat in the season opener where they're still going to be working out quarterback problems and offensive problems from losing so many to the NFL draft this year. But do not overlook Trey Lance. Do not take him for granted. And I think many teams look at him and say, oh, well, he put up those stats because he's in the FCS. Anybody could do that. Not even close. Find me a quarterback that can go an entire season without throwing an interception and can score touchdowns through the air and with his legs. Find me a guy that can do that at any level, and we'll talk. Trey Lance is one of the best QBs in the nation, and there are plenty of people that don't even know his name. I think you will know his name at the conclusion of the Oregon game, win or lose for the Bison with a Z. And Emperor of Rome, I'm sorry. I missed his comment. This is how we close. Let me go find it. Right here. In terms of throwback jerseys, perfect way to end it. In terms of throwback jerseys, the Tennessee Volunteers wore black uniforms in 1903. Wow, 1903. And Alabama wore gold as a primary color for the early 1900s. Yeah, saying that would be fascinating to see, I think, is an understatement. It would be amazing to see. I actually didn't know that. Alabama wearing gold in the 1900s. Tennessee wearing black, I could see, but not Alabama doing that. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever see that happen. Alabama, very strict in their tradition. Always that crimson and white, the crimson helmets with the white numbers on the side of their helmets. That's kind of what they've always done, at least for as long as I can remember, and obviously well back in the past as well. But nothing's keeping Tennessee from doing that. Teams focus so much on alternate uniforms. It's a recruiting tactic. I get it. Oregon kind of started that trend years ago, and it took off for other schools. So, Tennessee had their smoky gray uniforms. You've seen other teams like Arkansas. They've done their kind of grayish black anthracite, uniforms. Florida's done some. Michigan's done some. Notre Dame's done some. Everybody's got alternate uniforms, and they use it because they're cool, because they're trendy, and they can lure in recruits. Why not do that? But go back to your roots. Go back to your roots. Like you're saying, do some throwback. Do some throwback. Have some pride in your past of your school. And so seeing a gold versus black Tennessee, Alabama would be absolutely insane. That probably won't happen, but I certainly would love to see that. And I'm now educated because I certainly didn't know that about either school, but definitely not Alabama. I'm gonna have to go back and see if I can find some pictures of that because that is pretty neat. Unfortunately, probably won't happen in the near future, but maybe we could hope for that. With some other programs down the road, we can only hope. So crazy stuff. So, Emperor of Rome, thank you for that. Thank you for that interesting fact. And once again, look into a marketing career. Look into hopping on with a marketing staff at a program because I think people would love it. I'd eat it up, as I'm sure many others would. So guys, George Stice, I am done, thankfully. I am done with school. Just wrapped up just the other day. So I'm done. I can focus more on this. And really that's the only thing that we have to focus on now because where else am I going to go? Where else are any of us going to go, really? So George, good luck with your last final tomorrow. Finish strong. I hope it goes well. Hope all the other finals have gone well too. Obviously not the most ideal way to be taking them. Although you can use your laptops and books and stuff like that. So that does benefit you a little bit. But obviously it would be better to be at school and being around others and getting to check everything out. But just taking it one step at a time and riding this roller coaster that is 2020 and that is COVID-19. So good luck on it tomorrow. I do genuinely hope it goes well and then summer can finally begin. And Joe, I appreciate you, man. The love is mutual. The feeling and the love is mutual. So glad you got that check too. Go load up. Go load up. We might be reopening soon, but we might be closing back down just as quickly. So don't take it for granted. Make sure you get there in time. So guys, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on this live stream. Don't know how much we appreciate it. And what a night it's been. Almost 2 hours. I told myself coming into it, I said it won't be 2 hours. I said, we haven't been on in a while. It's not going to happen. We'll cut it short somewhere along the way. And you guys kept coming with the great comments. You kept coming with the great phone calls and the great discussion across the board. And we couldn't be happier and we couldn't be more appreciative. So thank you guys so much. As many of you guys have said, stay safe out there. Hang in there. Good luck on finals for those of you still wrapping up school. Good luck with you guys going back to work. If some of you guys are doing that, as many states are looking to reopen, once again, just a roller coaster and a crazy, hectic world that we're all riding and living in right now. And hopefully we'll be able to get off it pretty soon. So once again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Hunter Shin, Mr. Johnny D, Scott Van Kale, Joe Just Joe, George Stice, Emperor of Rome, DM, all of you guys across the board. Thank you so much for the support and the discussion. Stay safe. Enjoyed chatting with all of you guys. And you guys have a great rest of the night. We'll see you tomorrow, right back here on the Gridiron Expert as we continue our schedule previews.